What's up, everybody? Good morning. Happy Monday. Should be a fun week ahead. Hope you guys are doing good. We got a lot of stuff upcoming this week. Good morning. Good morning. Let me know in the chat if you guys can hear me, see my screens. Happy Monday. Good morning. So we'll dive into the analysis here, things to watch out for this upcoming week. I'm going to be jumping on to do pre-market streams this week for everyone on YouTube, as well as we have a lot of people tuning in from the Flipping Futures group that I run. Good morning, Trade Nicks. All good. Thank you. Appreciate that. All good. Sweet. So we'll get into the analysis, things like that for the day. If you guys have any questions, it's going to be pretty chill sessions here in the mornings. I don't trade execution-wise in the pre-market, just do analysis and stuff. So a little more free to kind of answer questions and stuff like that. So let me know if you guys have anything in the chat. We'll go through analysis on ES and NQ that I'm watching out for. Good morning, Deathly G. Daniel, what's up, man? Good morning. Let me just share this YouTube link for people to join in. There we go. All right. How's everybody's weekend? Starting out just looking at a daily chart here on ES, S&P futures. I primarily trade the S&P futures, but I also get into NQ as well. Especially recently, I've been taking more trades, more analysis, more stuff. Cold. Where are you tuning in from again, Daniel? It's cold here in Florida, man. Not used to it. We've had 3 days in a row now, I think, where it's been in the 20s here in the morning, Fahrenheit, which is freaking freezing for, oh yeah, New Jersey's cold, no doubt. Oh yeah. Yeah, it's been in the 20s like the last 3 mornings here in Orlando, which is very cold for us guys. Right on the beach, wicked wind chill, I bet. Nice. So, yeah, that's freezing. Good morning, Ishan. Welcome in, dude. Welcome in. So, I like to just start out on higher time frames, right? Daily, 4 hour, even the weekly, just kind of looking through structure to see like where we're at overall. So something that I've been observing overall is just this consolidation range that we've been in, especially mostly on ES between 6,800 and 7,000. We've been in there for, in a little bit above. We've been in this kind of range going back to the beginning of December, pretty much a balanced market overall, which just means there's been at the extremes a lack of continuation. You can see every time we've broke all-time highs, we rejected back down to the lows of this range multiple times now. And every time we've come down towards the lows of the range, we've bounced, back up into the middle at least, and then back up to the highs. So just context overall, we have a very kind of sideways market, in my opinion. It's still leaning a little bullish. Overall, I mean, we're near all-time highs, but there's a lot of upcoming stuff this week to watch out for. We have, in fact, we can go through some fundamental stuff first, actually. So I've been using this new tool that I really like called Market AI. And so I'll go through this tool here. Just looking at the calendar coming up this week, we have manufacturing PMI today. It's FOMC, or not, sorry, FOMC. It's NFP week, which is always a big one, right? So NFP week as well. Expand this here. So big one, we have JOLTS openings tomorrow. Wednesday, we have ADP non-farm payroll data. And then Thursday, jobless claims. Friday, obviously the big one is NFP data release. So pretty much every day this week, we're having some high impact news release, which is typically how it is on NFP weeks. So important things to be aware of. But today, 9:45 actually and 10 a.m. we have that NFP news coming out. Or not, sorry, manufacturing PMI news coming out 9:45 and 10 a.m. today. Sorry, I'm still working on my iced latte, guys. You can see some of the fundamentals. I like this quick overview report that I get every day here in Market AI. But essentially, there's a lot of different stuff going on right now. So there's also, we need to watch out for headlines around this. Trump potentially, or not potentially, has nominated a replacement for Jerome Powell in the head of the Fed. So the market's kind of pricing in some reaction to that. We also have a lot of geopolitical stuff going on with the US, Israel, Iran, and overall Middle East, right? So there's a lot of stuff going on with that impacting. And then the macro outlook upcoming, obviously, like I already talked about, we have manufacturing PMI coming out 9:45 and 10 a.m. today. JOLTS job openings tomorrow. We have the ADP data coming out Wednesday. And then Friday, we have NFP data coming out. Right. So mostly neutral, slightly bullish, right? Just the market's, high already. It's near all-time highs, coming off a little bit recently, but overall, the fact that we're near all-time highs is still relatively bullish. Dips have continued to get bought, but in the near term, basically since November, December, we've just been kind of up and down. So relatively neutral. I thought this was a cool tool to kind of get an overview of some different fundamental and technical things. Jay Tutorial said, I'm in Minnesota. Oh man, dude, that is cold. I can only imagine how cold Minnesota is. I'm complaining about it being in the 20s here. We got a little frost. Probably gonna have to replace all of my grass and landscaping. That's gonna be a nice expense come springtime here. We don't normally have to do that because we don't normally get this much freeze in Florida. But yeah, all of my tropical plants and grass are not gonna be doing well. Probably gonna have to replace everything come spring. Do you use the option flow that affect the futures market because of the delta hedging by market makers? Not a ton. That's not a ton, to be honest. I may start looking more into that because I know that is a thing. Not saying that's not a valid to look at. I just don't look at it a ton. I haven't found it necessary just based on what I use to trade. So this is kind of that range that I'm watching out for, generally speaking, here on ES, between 7,000 and 6,800. We'll get more specific, right, as we go through some analysis here this morning. But generally speaking, you see how every time we hit these lows and these highs, see that? Just stuck in that range. I'll drop these screenshots in the Flipping Futures Discord if you guys want to review anything that we talk about here. Yeah, I do look at VX, which is impacted by the options flow, I think, right? I think it's impacted by the puts on SPX. Yeah, so I do, I guess, look at VX, which is part of that. All right, drop down. Well, actually, let's go. Let me know in the chat, how many of you guys look at ES and NQ, or just one or the other? Let me know in the chat what you guys are looking at. That would be helpful, because I'll go through analysis and stuff on NQ as well. Both, mostly ES. ES mainly, NQ and GC a little bit. ES, both. Seems like most people look at both. Top drive, NQ and gold. You like the volatility, man. I like it. Oh man, I feel like ES is such a tame gentleman's market compared to ES and NQ. I mean, sorry, NQ and gold. Wild. So similar range that I've been looking at here on NQ. Again, this is purely just a daily chart here on NQ. Roughly between like the 25,000 area and 26,000 area, kind of key support and resistance. You can see every time we bounce down there, we rejected couple key areas of resistance up here. You can see that I've rejected. Now we briefly broke out of that and then failed to sustain above, similar to how ES has been breaking all-time highs. NQ still below all-time highs here. This is contract adjusted, by the way. But similarly to what ES was doing, breaking new highs and then rejecting all the way, we broke over this resistance, kind of took out some liquidity and dropped right back in. But excluding that, you know, we're roughly hanging out balanced between 26 and 25 on NQ. We'll drop down to a lot more specific stuff, but just a high level. Now, what's interesting recently is I was watching this area as support, right? And I took some trades from this last week. This area where there was a lot of volume and different stuff in this range here. And I was watching this as support, and we broke under it all the way down under these lows here overnight, and we're kind of bouncing back to retest this area now. So I'll look at more stuff here as we take a look at the volume profiles and whatnot this morning. But that's interesting to be aware of as well there. Let's drop down a bit, take a look at some 4-hour charts, start getting a little more specific for what we're watching out for here today. It's definitely a day and week for sure to be very, very patient. Definitely a day and week for sure that we want to be very, very patient and see what develops here. All right. Trying to get a good view on this to snip over here, guys. Trading ES, but always watching NQ also. Yeah, that's me for the most part, but I have been getting more active with trading NQ as well. I've always done analysis on both and primarily traded ES, and then there are times where I get more active trading NQ as well. Right now is kind of being one of those times. So looking at the 4-hour charts here, you can see this is kind of the last key area of demand where we had a lot of volume and consolidation built up before we rallied really aggressively out of that. And you can see we've retested into that one time there, a little bit there, but we dropped back into it another time there. We held that here, above that zone there, and now we're dropping back into here again. So this is kind of a key area to watch that we tested. This is pretty much the last, between this and this is kind of the last key demand areas I've left on my charts. Everything else I've kind of cleared out. Move this. So you can see how we already in the pre-market or overnight dropped and kind of took out these lows here into this same area where we kind of bounced off this demand area that formed back over here, bounced again. And look at this consolidation here. Again, this is a 4-hour chart, right? So quite a bit of consolidation there and aggressive rally out of there, right? So we dipped into that once, held there, just came back and dropped into there a second time overnight, and aggressively have rallied out of there again, back up into this range. Now, last trading day, Friday, we did have a lot of nice consolidation here during the day, which broke down. And typically, after seeing such a large consolidation and then we break under that, I typically look for a retest of that and first look to see if, in this example, if sellers defend this retest. Right. So if we had a balance range here with a lot of volume built and we broke out of it, I'm typically first looking to see if sellers retest and defend here. Now, the thing that makes this a little tricky is we've, on this break of this consolidation, this consolidation was pretty much in the middle of this multi-week, almost multi-month now range that we've been in. And we broke down into some key areas of demand being, pretty much this whole area, right? So we already kind of broke down there overnight and bounced off of it. And now we're kind of recapturing into the prior day range, which makes this kind of really tricky for me. So looking at the volume profile, we had a lot of volume in that consolidation built basically between 69.50 and 69.70, right? So, in this area here, not quite there yet. It's like here. I'll pull up the volume profiles where we get more specific. We're almost retesting that now, but we are still like well within yesterday's range. I'm just looking at where the most kind of the bulk of the bell curve of volume is built was between like 69.50 and 50 and 70 Thursday and Friday of last week that we broke down. So it's very important here to see, especially early on today, if buyers are able to recapture back inside there and hold. That's typically kind of a bullish indication that we're going to go back towards the higher time frame balance range highs, back towards 7,000, maybe even, these prior highs there, which are basically into all-time highs. So it's quite tricky here in the early goings this morning that we've already basically broken down this consolidation range that we had Thursday and Friday last week, retesting it now as the market's getting ready to open here this morning, but with the context that we already kind of dropped into this higher time frame area of demand, right? So we've already kind of tested this key area, and now we're bouncing back into this consolidation range. So I think the early going here is going to be pretty important to watch and see basically if bulls are able to recapture in this range and drive price back towards 7,000, or if sellers are going to reject this range early on and drop back towards the lows, back towards this key demand area during regular trading hours. So I don't know if I want to touch this, or, you know, because this is kind of a high consolidation range right in the middle of the higher time frame balance range, or do I want to just sit back and let this play out? Right? I may look at one of these scenarios to see if we break above this kind of point of control area, you could say, high volume consolidation area, to target the highs, or if sellers reject to target the lows. That can be kind of choppy and messy, though. That can be a little dangerous. Or, you know, based on this overall context, we just kind of sit back, stay patient, and see what happens if we drop back down in this range, back 6,900 and under, to see if bulls defend somewhere down there. I'll be looking at the order flow to see if we find a spot where bulls have significant reaction down here, if we drop down there again, or if we rally above back into the highs, especially if we take out those highs there around right around 7,000. Look at this kind of supply area, we could call it, where we had this consolidation here that sold off pretty aggressively, right? So this would be the next key area to if we go and hit, to see if sellers reject again between, I don't know, 7,000 and 70.20. If we get strong above 70.20, I'm not looking to short all-time highs, right? Even though this has been continuing to work, which has just been every time we pop into these all-time highs, we keep tending to reject right there. But bulls have stayed, despite that, bulls have continued to buy the dips very resiliently, which has been impressive. So for me today, the biggest things to watch is if we drop down under 6,900 back into this kind of key area, multi-week demand area, today or this week. If bulls defend down there, or if we break down. If we break down there, we could shift into a more bearish market condition for a while. We'll see. But if we drop down here, I'll be looking for probably bottom reversal scenarios first. And if we pop up here around 7,000, I'll be looking for top reversal scenarios first. Both of which, you know, probably first just targeting the middle area. You know, we'll see what develops, but somewhere in here, I'd be looking to target. Does that make sense? Hopefully this isn't so much scribble. Hopefully you guys are tracking with me here. And let me pull up NQ. So NQ kind of broke under this little area that I was watching. So these are some areas of resistance that I've been watching, right? We had a very brief breakout over it that rejected back down pretty hard. So I'd be watching this area here as resistance between like 26,000 and 26,200 at the highs. And similarly, we have, you know, these prior lows here just under 25,000. We've bounced pretty much above those multiple times now. So I'd be watching these lows here on this drop. Now, what's a little bit interesting, I don't think we really, yeah, well, we did on ES. They're both kind of recapturing now. But we had this consolidation area here that I was watching last week. We had this consolidation area here, You can see it's marked in blue here, and we kind of broke down pretty hard under it overnight. Now we're starting to recapture, similar to what I was talking about on ES. It's like, okay, now there's a lot of volume built here, especially between like, let me pull up my NQ volume profile, especially between like 25,700 and 25,800. So 25.7 to 25.8, plus or minus a bit, but that's like the two last point of controls from Thursday and Friday. Which is roughly in this area. It'll be interesting to see this morning if, bulls recapture that and move back up towards this area at those highs, or if sellers are able to reject that and head back down towards these prior lows. Astro Trades asked, what is my average risk versus reward if I'm just trading intraday structures, intraday moves? I don't take a trade unless it's at least a 2-hour opportunity. But like, for example, through the month of February, my average risk versus reward, through the month of January, my average risk versus reward was like over 6. Actually around 7, and overall win rate around 56%. The data is a little skewed there because I took a lot of break evens. So I take trades off break even often if I don't see it working out well immediately. So I look at the order flow real time to see, to confirm my trades, and then especially to manage the trade early on. If I see the strong reaction and shift of structure, I'm going to hold that win for a nice size win. And if I quickly see it's not confirmed, or I see red flags and things like that on the order flow based on things that I use to confirm the entry, then I will shift my risk to break even pretty quickly and just take it off. And I can always look to re-enter. So that has led to me not taking a ton of losses and sustaining a really high risk versus reward, even trading intraday. I don't really do SPX too much. So TradeNix asked, when trading options, how do you choose between SPY and SPX? And the reason is, for the position sizing of SPX options, I just, I can't get as many contracts, right? Because I don't trade with that much size. Typically, I go in with around like $5,000 positions, roughly, plus or minus, depending on the trade. And so I can get more contracts with SPY where I'm able to scale and stuff more, versus SPX positions are just a lot larger. So a lot less ability to like scale contracts and stuff. Yeah, good question, Astro Trades. So those are the key areas that I'm watching out for on ES and NQ, guys. We can take a quick look at the volume profile here on NQ and ES. So looking at NQ here, this is a 30-minute chart with volume profiles. You can see this is that area. I like to do blue on the volume. This is that area where we had a lot of consolidation Thursday and Friday. And you can see roughly between like the value area high and low. And then we had these point of controls in the middle here, right? Just for context. So, we broke down from there pretty aggressively already, and we're coming back up towards a retest. Obviously, just overnight trading, we can see how low the volume was, right? that's not as significant to me as like a low volume node breakdown during like regular trading hours. So we pretty much have done a nice little V-shaped bounce and kind of retraced a lot of this just kind of low volume selling. So we'll see if we retest back up here. Now, NQ is relatively lower overall than ES. We'll take a look at that as well. But this is kind of roughly that area where I was saying, like, okay, if buyers are able to sustain price back in here, even if they just close price in here today, that's kind of a relatively bullish sign for me. Now that sellers have managed to break down this consolidation range, it would be ideal for them to reject, and there's those prior day lows, and it would be ideal for them to reject towards the lows, right? Prior day lows into the low of this higher volume consolidation range. So this is kind of that key area where it's like, okay, if bulls recapture here, we could go back towards highs. Or if sellers reject here, then we could go back towards, you know, these lows. Pull up ES. Again, similarly on ES here, this is that area where we had a lot of volume consolidate Thursday and Friday last week. You can see how we're coming back to retest that area now. But you can see how ES has already gotten well back above these prior day lows. Right? You can see how ES has recaptured well above these prior day lows, whereas NQ is still below them, coming to retest them now, but still below them. However, it's kind of mixed, right? Because this is ultimately the area where we had the volume transacted. So this is the most key area for sellers to defend or buyers to recapture. So again, this is on ES, that area where, like, okay, if bulls recapture this and sustain in here, that, you know, is pretty bullish indication that we could go trade back up towards 7,000 into, you know, 70 30s, and then above that this is all-time high. So that's up there. Now, if sellers actually mean business here, you know, after we broke down this consolidation range, then if we retest this and reject, you'd want to see them reject early on. We do have the news coming out 9:45 and 10 a.m. today, but ideally, you know, you wouldn't want to see price just consolidate and hang out up here. You'd want to see a pretty strong rejection from sellers if we're going to see downside continuation. And if we do, then kind of looking at prior lows. Well, I guess first those prior lows right there, over here. Now, the question is, do I want to get involved in the middle here with this to see if we're potentially going to go break out towards the highs or break down back towards the lows? Maybe, maybe not. I'm watching it for context to see what develops. Maybe I will if I see something really high quality develop, or maybe I sit back and see if we do get a nice dip down here, if buyers defend, or if we get a nice pop up here, if sellers defend. But you can see inside this area where this volume is built a lot, how messy it is. We dropped under here, we recaptured, we dropped down, now we're popping back in. So in any area in the middle here, you can see how messy it is. So that's what I'm saying. It can be dangerous to try to play that game in the middle. Again, 9:45, 10 a.m. news today. We have more high impact tomorrow with JOLTS openings at 10 a.m. tomorrow. ADP non-farm payroll news Wednesday at 8:15 a.m. in the pre-market. And then we have services PMI and ISM non-manufacturing PMI at 10 a.m., 9:45 and 10 a.m. Thursday, we have jobless claims at 8:30. And then Friday, we have NFP. So lots to come this week. I'll be going through pre-market analysis with you guys every day this week. If we have good participation in these, then I may keep doing pre-market analysis and stuff like this. For those of you that are in Flipping Futures, the private coaching community that I run, will be live trading here in just a few minutes at 9:15. So I'll see you guys back over there. For everyone, thanks for tuning in. If you'd like to connect with me, send me a message on Instagram if you have any questions or anything like that. It's the best way to get a hold of me. But again, 8:30 a.m. every day this week, I'll stay on doing this pre-market analysis and kind of Q&A time in the mornings here on YouTube. So thanks everybody for joining in. Thanks, Astro. Appreciate you, man. All right. I'll see you guys tomorrow. For those of you in Flipping Futures, we'll see you just a minute in the live trading session. Thanks, Blair. See you guys. Peace.